And welcome to my next video. This is going to be a little different. I'm still in Carole Rothman's book, bowl making book. This is a vase, not a bowl, although basically it's got two bowls inverted plus, anyway, I had to make 4 blanks. Now what she did, she started out with a 8x8 mahogany and 8x8 cherry, and then she cut them in half and added them together. Put them back together and mahogany with cherry, half and half. Then you have another smaller blank, which is going to be for the ring and the transition to the flared mouth. And then you got a piece for the base. There's just a 1/4 inch. This is all 3/4. I bought these boards on eBay, the cherry and the mahogany, and they were, this one was like 6 inches, was like 4. So instead of gluing one mahogany blank, cutting it apart, I just made the blanks like this with the individual boards that I bought. Cut this down to size, glued these together. I didn't even have to rip that one any. It was just slightly more than 4 inches. So anyway, this is supposed to be an 8x8 blank, half mahogany, half cherry. And so that's what I've got here. So what I'm going to do now, and I've sanded them smooth, got them all looking real nice. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some tape on these, and I'm going to draw my guidelines on both of them. And then I'm going to mount the pattern. And this is going to be basically like a straight-sided bowl. In fact, she said you could use the pattern from the basic bowl earlier in the book, and that's probably what I'm going to do. Because it's got it's 3 or 4 rings per bowl. I think it's 4. And then you stack them, invert them. Use this as the base instead of using what's left out of the middle of the blank. Use this as a transition ring, and then these 2 pieces left out of the blank use to make the little flare mouth at the top of the vase. So I'm going to get this mounted, get this tape on these, get the lines drawn on them, get the patterns mounted, and we'll get to the saw. I'm going to use a number 5 blade, and I think the angle's the same all the way throughout. 28 degrees. So when you see it again, I'm going to be at the saw ready to start cutting it. Okay, I got the pattern mounted, ready to cut. I'm going to cut both of these on the outside. Every cut's going to be at the same angle, but I'm going to cut both of them on the outside before I start drilling holes. As far as these guidelines, I want to make sure this one line was actually on the seam, because I wanted that seam to be in the center of the pattern. So that line is on the seam, and I put the tape where it would be right on the seam, kind of helped me. And then I also had the edge open where I could make sure I was drawing that straight on both ends of the seam. And then I just measured the other way and crossed it halfway down. And as you can see, I cut a little diamond right there. What Carole Rothman likes to do is she puts an awl through the center of that pattern and sticks it in the center of that guideline and then applies the pattern. For me, that's problematic because I'm using spray adhesive and it wants to stick in the wrong place. So I just carry the guidelines on the pattern all the way out to the edge, and I cut that little diamond so I can see the inside ends of the lines. Then I make sure all 8 of those line up, the 4 outside ones and the 4 internal ones. And they're not always spot on perfect, but they're not any more than a 32nd or so off, and I've never had any problem with alignment in the final pattern. And this one just got 2 sides, so it's not as big a deal in lining the designs up. So now I'm going to cut the outside line around both of these, and then I'll start drilling. I'll use the outside of this to set my drill press, and I'll drill an entry hole with a number 60 drill bit, and then I'll start cutting the inner rings on both pieces. Well, I got the first ring cut off of each blank, and they both match up really well, so we don't have to do any adjustment on angle. We'll go with 28 degrees all the way through. So I just got 6 more to cut. And if You can see that right there. I'm marking them. I want to keep the rings together with the base that they belong with. Not necessarily the base, but the 3 rings together. They're not going to be glued back to the base. But anyway, I'm trying to keep them together. May not matter, but I like to keep things together if they come apart. So anyway, I'm going to finish this. Got 6 more rings to cut, and then we'll start gluing it together. Okay, got half the rings cut, 2 on each blank. So I'm going to start the second half now. Everything's matching up very nicely. The drill bit seems to not be flexing, at least not that I can tell. A little bigger hole than I like to drill, but it's very sandable. This is not real hard material to sand. So let me get going here. And this will be the 3rd ring on the first blank. And we'll be, we're getting real close to getting ready to start matching them up and gluing them. Okay, last ring, first blank. So got 2 rings to cut. I'm just filming this one. I'm not filming both blanks. So this will be the last ring for this one. They're all matching up very nicely. It's going to look good. Not going to be hard to sand, I do believe. Be more drill entry holes to sand than actual rings matching up. I think they're going to match up very well. So I'll get this one done. I'll cut the other one, and the next step will be I'm going to take this one. It's just arbitrary which one's number 1, which one's number 2. I just labeled 1 of each. And I'll match these rings up, lap them if I have to make them match, and then we'll glue the first set together, and I'll have to repeat it for the second one. Okay, I got the first set. I lapped them together, trying to remove any gaps between the rings. They're all fitting pretty well, so now I'm going to glue this one, put it in the press. And while that one's setting, I'll be working on the other set, lapping them and getting them matched up. I've got both sets of rings glued together, and I've already sanded the inside of this one. I used this little drum mounted in my grill press, and she said you don't have to get real fine sanding on the inside, just match the rings up, because that's going to be internal and not seen. It's not going to be like a bowl. They're going to be inverted and glued together. But the outside, the same thing when you first sand the outside, just match up the rings, because it's going to do some shaping once you get everything together. And make sure you leave on both sides of the bowl enough area here as you're sanding. Don't sand that too thin, because that is a gluing area. So now I'm going to sand the outside of this one. I think I'm going to do it on my belt sander. And I'm going to start on that, see how it works. I got some new belts for it. I got different grits, and so I can do a little better job than I've been doing before. But that's the next step, is to sand the inside and outside of these. I'm only 1/4 the way on that, but they are glued together, each set matching. And as you can see there, I got kind of a haze that you see on the camera. It'll be better when I put a finish on it, because that mahogany will really stand out. But she calls this a swirl. It's supposed to kind of make a swirl in the side of the bowl as it swirls around in that pattern. But anyway, let me get back to sanding on these, and we'll check in a little bit. I got some more cutting to do. Got to cut the ring, transition ring for the neck or the flared top on it. I got to cut the base, and anyway, there's two more blanks, and I'm going to use these that came out of these blanks for that, for the top of the bowl. I'm sorry, top of the vase. It's not a bowl. This bowl is put together to make a vase. Anyway, I'll get back to sanding. I'll check in just a little bit as it goes, and we'll see how it looks. Okay, since I last recorded, it's been 24 hours. I was about to sand the outside of this bowl. That's what I got done. I got that done. I did some of it on a belt sander, and I used a flexible pad sander for some of it. So the preliminary sanding is done on this. We don't get real carried away because we've got to shape the outside once we get all this constructed. But the reason it's been 24 hours is I took a break and I was coming in to start sanding on the outside of this bowl. We had 2 rounds of severe thunderstorms, and the second round knocked the power out. So that was 24 hours ago. It just came back on. I don't have internet back yet, so I don't know when or if I'll get to upload this video. A lot of structural damage in this area, across west central and eastern Texas. Thousands of people without power. I'm fortunate to have power back this quickly. They told us it might be days. But here we are. Now I'm going to start sanding on this one. I'll try to get that one sanding, and then hopefully we'll keep power up. I can get that done, and I'll get back and see what the next step is as far as constructing this. I think we work on the base. It's probably the next step before we glue these parts together. But first I got to sand these rings down to match like I did this one. Okay, I got both bowls sanded, the preliminary sanding, inside and out. That's probably about it for internal sanding. There'd be some shaping and a finer grit sanding on the outside. But next I'm going to work on the base. What we're going to do now is pick one of these. It doesn't matter to be the bottom, the other to be the top. And we'll put them together like that. But first you're going to put the base on, and you use this to draw the pattern. Cut it at the same 28-degree angle. Cut it generously so it'll stick out a little bit, give you some room to sand down. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to draw that pattern. Use this to draw the pattern. This will be the base, the bottom, and this will be the base. And then I'll go cut that and glue it on. And that'll be the end of that step for the base. But then when we're shaping, we'll smooth all that in. And the next step after that will be to glue these two together. We'll start working on the neck. Right now I'm going to draw this pattern and take it to the saw and cut it. Okay, I've got the base glued on. Now I'm going to stack these into what's going to be the body of the vase. So we'll glue that on, line it up. So it's going to be way too large for maybe even, I'll check and see if my other bolts will be tall enough to use it in the press. If not, I'll have to put some kind of weight on it. But anyway, that's the next step. I'm going to glue that on right there. Okay, the next step, we're going to start working on building the transition piece, what she calls the neck, and the flare for the top. This is the piece left over out of the center of the blank for this top part. And we're going to take it and put it on this piece that we laminated for what I call the transition ring, and she calls it the neck. And I'm going to trace that on there, get me a circle that matches this. And then I'm going to come 1 inch inside with a compass and draw a circle inside that. And I'm going to take it to the to the scroll saw, and we're going to cut that ring out that 1 inch wide circle makes. If you understand what I'm saying, it'll be obvious when I do it. So let me mark that and draw my lines, my second circle, and make sure I get them concentric there, try to anyway. So let me do that. There, I've managed to make those circles pretty well concentric and centered. They're not perfect, but they're good enough. Internally, you're not going to see that very well. So I got to put the scroll saw table flat. We're going to do this straight up and down with no angle, because this is going to sit on top of here for the next piece to transition. It'll sit on top of here for the next piece to transition up from it. So let me go cut that real quick. So now we're going to take this little ring I just cut. It's not perfect, but it's going to be okay. And this is the piece that I just used to mark the outer part of this. And we'll flip it over. We'll put this on there and trace that inner circle right there and cut that out at 28 degrees. And then we'll do the same thing with the top, the other piece. We'll move it over like this, trace that one and cut it at 28 degrees. And that'll be our 3 pieces that make the neck and the flare for the top of the bowl. I call that a transition piece, but it is the neck of the vase. So it kind of transitions from the large to the little small flared top, smaller flared top. So we'll mark these. I'm going to drill some entry holes, and then I'll cut those out. I'll be ready to start gluing this piece together. Okay, so I've got my circle drawn. I'm going to cut out the center of this. This is going to be the inner part. It has to match the outer angle. And this is flipped upside down compared to how this outer one was cut. So we got to cut in the opposite direction that we did on the outside, so they'll match. And I've got me a new blade. I pushed the other blade too far. It was burning the cherry a little bit on that ring, what I call the transition ring. So I've gone to a new blade, still with the number 5. I'm going to cut this one. I'm going to cut the other piece also, and those 3 pieces, these 2 along with the ring, will make the neck, or the transition as I call it. So I'll cut this out real quick. I drilled a bigger hole because this is all waste, and I didn't want to drill into the side if I could help it. So I just grabbed the nearest drill bit and drilled a big hole and got after it. So here we're going to cut this out. So there's the neck glued together. It's very rough looking right now, but I've got to do a bunch of shaping and sanding on it. And also going to do the rough shaping on the body of the vase before I glue those together. So there's a lot of sanding to be done right now. It may be 2 or 3 or 4 hours worth with lots of breaks. So next time you see it, I'll have this shaped the way I want it, hopefully, and top flared and everything like I want it to be. So let me get started on that. Try to check in every once in a while and see how it's going. Yeah, I did a bunch of work on that. Pretty close to where I want it. That's 2 different grits. I'm going to come in and this is the top right here. I'm going to flare that out with my inflatable ball sander and make a little taper out and give a point out there. Kind of come to a point right along that rim. But I'm happy with it so far. It's looking pretty much the way I want it to look. So let me get back on that and I'll work that down. Well, there that is. A little more fine finish sanding on it, but it's pretty much the shape I want it to be in. Pretty happy with it so far. Like I say, I got some finer sandpaper and smooth it up a little bit more, but I'm really happy the way it's coming. I'm going to work on shaping the body now, and got to get that middle piece rounded a little bit. Not a lot, but we want to take that edge off of it. Get all, see if there's any, like there's a mark right there I got to get out. And get the base. So there's a mark. Oops, where's the mark? Right there. There's a drill mark. Maybe 1 or 2 more in there. They're not very bad on this one. And then I got to get that base sanded down smooth to match. So I'm going to use the flexible pad sander on that and get to work on it. Well, there's some of the shaping before I put the top on it, the neck on it. Still not completely done, but I pretty well got the shape that I want. Some more that'll come off. I've been shaping it with a real coarse grit. My next step is I'm going to glue this on, and then I'm going to blend it in right in here, still with a coarse grit. It's not going to take much. It's a pretty good shape. And then I'll start with finer grits and get the scratches and the ripples out of it. And then we'll be ready for a finish. But right now I'm going to glue that on. Won't fit in the press even with the tall bolts, so I'm probably going to have to put weights on top of it. But anyway, that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, so there's pretty much the sanded version. I've sanded it to 400 grit. Now if I can mix me up some finish, I'm going to put some poly on it. I'm going to thin some down and wipe some real fine coats on it. And the first coat should show us what it's going to look like. So let me work on getting my mixture and try to get a coat on it. So there it is. It's actually got 2 really light coats on it. It's still a little bit tacky from the last coat, but you can see it really brings that mahogany out. And then as it rotates through the grain of the mahogany, it has a little different look to it. It's supposed to give you a swirl pattern, and it kind of does give a swirl pattern, as you can see. Anyway, that's this week's video. This is going to be in a vase. I've started a vase making playlist, but it's related to the bowls because that's like 2 bowls put together with a couple additional pieces. So I hope you like that. If you do, hit the like button. And I got some Steve Good vases I'm going to try, and I'm still going to do some more bowls. Just having to move around with my material. I was able to get this material on eBay. That's the reason I went ahead and made this vase. So I hope you like that. If you do, hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button, and I'll do more of this. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope to see you in the next video. So thanks for watching.